In this video, I'm going to show you moment by moment my 4-year progression as a Blender artist. Absolute beginner YouTube tutorial, all the way up to owning my own freelance business. So I started like everyone else in 2020, trying to just do some YouTube tutorials. I was working my way. I had an art background and I graduated from college, but I had no idea about how to be a freelance artist or even how to do 3D at all. I was working on this little 2012 MacBook Pro that I had in high school. The only actual time that I even had to work on Blender was between 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. before I would go to my 9-to-5 marketing job. I started out doing just some simple tutorials, but then I made it really hard on myself by trying to do other things and just kind of chart my own path. And what that ultimately led me to was feeling really burnt out. I tried this sort of daily animation challenge a couple of times and actually stopped, almost quit for a couple of months. Of course, then COVID hit and I had no motivation to keep up at all. Once I finally felt a little better and took a little bit of a break, I came back and really challenged myself to make a totally new piece that I hadn't made before. It was this sort of vase with some vines growing, and I had never really tried animated texture, so this was a big deal for me. I actually printed this piece on a huge canvas to kind of like get over my own mental anxieties. Once I kind of got through that, I started doing challenge to challenge, really just trying new things and ultimately feeling burnt out because I was trying to meet this weird social media standard that I had set for myself. Ultimately, later in my first year, I tried to make something that I felt was really meaningful and challenging with this sort of like character cloth animation and all these sort of like bubble particles and plexus effect that was not a normal thing back in early Blender days. Ultimately, I finished the bubble character piece, but I felt so drained from trying to do it and try to like live up to these weird expectations and didn't even try Blender for another 5 months. And that was really my whole first year as a Blender artist. My second year as a Blender artist in 2021, I actually tried another daily animation challenge coupled with the 36 days of type. And it kind of went well for a while. I was combining some particle sims and trying to get together this sort of like motion design epic feeling that I really wanted to capture originally. Luckily, a local hotel found my 36 days of type piece and they asked me to host artwork in their hotel. This hotel piece was huge for me. I basically went from just trying random things to feeling like I actually had like a client and a deadline, and I felt like I really had something exciting to do. The hotel basically just said, give us whatever you can, and that helped me to create something really, really nice, totally different than what I had done before, and really pushed the boundaries. It was only a 2-week period, but I grew so much as an artist by accepting the challenge and then trying to meet it as best I could. After the arts commission, I tried new things, but ultimately I had to go back to my resin painting, which was a part of an art show that I had signed up before COVID. And trying to do these resin paintings meant that I actually couldn't do 3D animations anymore, so once again I had a big lull in my Blender art career. Once I was back though, I tried different things with Unreal Engine 5 and just kind of like bounced around, didn't really know what I wanted to do yet, and so it kind of made me feel anxious again. But luckily, the hotel asked me back for another show in November. This November show at the Arts Hotel was even better than the first one. I really tried to push myself by creating a whole new piece that was similar to the work of Peter Tarka. It was this really abstract bouquet of flowers that was perfect for Blender. The way in which the flowers were made was using an array. They were super easy to animate and create these sort of like interesting cascading spinning animations. It was kind of because of this challenge that I was able to like sit down and realize that I can make something and not feel anxious and really just like let loose if I come across something that I think is really, really interesting. This was also my longest piece at the time too, which was about 12 minutes of animation. It took me almost 2 years as a Blender artist to realize that I just needed to step out of my own way and let the work guide me. Then in December of 2021, I went viral on TikTok, got my very first commission as a Blender artist. My 3rd year as a Blender artist, I'm starting off with a viral TikTok, a brand new commission, and I'm thinking about quitting my marketing job. I realized that with these commissions coming out, I can actually make more than I'm making with my marketing job. So ultimately, I decided to quit and go full-time freelance. Ultimately, I start working through my first months as a freelancer, but I slowly start to realize that I'm constantly trying to chase my own virality, and I end up kind of burning out really quickly on TikTok. I'm lucky that I had enough commissions to kind of get me through, but ultimately that whole summer I was really struggling to make anything for social media, which I felt like was really important at the time because all my commissions were coming through social media and going viral on TikTok. I ended up going viral again on TikTok, this time even bigger than before, with a sort of weird mask animation, but ultimately it brings me up and then crushes me that entire summer. I slowly get stuck in this idea that I have to constantly produce for social media in order to make any money, even though all of my clients are already coming in. It takes me a long time to realize that there's a total separation between social media and making money, and this brings out a lot of anxiety in me as a freelancer. And so, feeling really stuck in my 3rd year as a Blender artist, I try to do daily animations again in October. I'm feeling really stuck at this point, and so I'm trying these different daily animations with statues, which really made me feel comfortable because that's where I had done so much previous work, but ultimately it burns me out. And by the end of October, I make one last sort of character animation and then really just don't make any work for the rest of the year. At the end of my 3rd year as a Blender artist, I'm going up and down, and ultimately just feel so burnt out. 4th year as a Blender artist was totally different though. I start out trying another daily animation challenge, and it goes a lot better, although I decide not to post the daily portions of the animation. I instead just concentrate on myself and my mental health and post all of the animations when I'm totally finished with them. And this helped a lot, but I ultimately still felt like there was some sort of gap there for some reason. So for most of the beginning of my 4th year, I'm just trying out different things and trying to do different animations, but ultimately the big moment doesn't come until I go back to the Arts Hotel in May. That same month, I had a ton of commissions and a lot to do, but I really wanted to make a sort of like comeback animation where I had all these plans and all these ideas, and I really wanted it to be something special, just like all the other ones had been. So basically, I wait all the way up until the very last weekend and make something that is definitely better than I thought it was going to be. It's ultimately about AI and artists and the contradiction of the two, and I modeled this entire cathedral by myself, which was something I had never done before. That Arts Hotel piece ultimately got me through a ton of anxiety, and I felt so good about it that I made a tutorial here on YouTube about the radial array that I made for this sort of like cathedral scene. Taking the time to make that tutorial for the radial array really got me interested in educating and kind of got me thinking that I could really be a part of the group of the artists who I had admired so much for 4 years at this point, I had the opportunity to start educating just like all of these other artists had. And on top of that, I could give back to the community that had already given me so much. I try one more daily challenge to try and get into the groove of things and sort of refine the type of content and the type of animations that I really wanted to do. And ultimately, I post them all on Instagram, but ironically, what does the best, or what gives me sort of the most motivation, is actually when I make a video talking about my experience as a 3D artist trying this daily animation. I had done so many daily animations up until this point, but it was really this moment where I started to talk about my own experience that got me so motivated to continue on and keep trying new things. I finally realized that what got me really excited was talking about the art that I wanted to make, and then telling people how I made that art, and helping other people to be inspired and motivated to just use all the tools that I had been using for so long myself. I had spent so long trying to motivate and inspire people through my art, when in reality I just wanted to join them in the conversation of it all. So in the end of my 4th year as a Blender artist, I go viral on Instagram and start accumulating a ton of commissions, and ultimately get to the point where I can finally call myself a true freelancer. So from my 4 years, I think I have 3 big takeaways for anybody who's looking to start, or who's really interested in Blender but isn't sure how to kind of deal with their mental anxieties. The first, and probably most important, is to really stay away from the analytics, especially early on. Try to find your reason for why you want to create. Get rid of all the things that you're not sure about making or not interested in, and really focus on the one thing that you want to try to make. My second tip is to try and challenge yourself as much as you can. Just go out and find a challenge, or find something you're interested in, emulate it. Go in and see if you can copy it and recreate it. And that's really the fastest way to grow as an artist. My third tip has got to be trying to challenge yourself in a mentally healthy way. Finding a good group, finding an artist or some other people who are just starting out like you, or maybe they're in a similar situation, and just communicate. Reach out, get feedback, and try and see what interests or different things that you could try that might be similar. And just try and stay out of your head for the most part. If you have a moment where you can try and collaborate with somebody, or just get genuine feedback from a friend, that would be huge in the long run for you as an artist if you're trying to grow. Thank you so much for listening to my whole story. If you're trying to grow as an artist, or you're trying to get out there, I have a newsletter where I'm giving out a ton of free assets and news, and I'm trying to grow some courses online. So definitely give me a follow and let me know what you think about this video in the comments. I appreciate you being here, and I wish you the best of luck as an artist.